Hi, this is the Unprofessor continuing his augury for 2018. There was something I missed saying in the midst of all my various tangents about things to come, and that what they would be is when I mentioned the Lulu Island collapse and the mega tsunami around the Gulf and the backwash up the Fraser, which I've said elsewhere might go up who knows how far. Alexandra, actually it is. But it'll also be a backwash off the islands and from around the Gulf, like a second rush, and that'll be like a whole boiling pit for a while of waters rushing and settling. And there's not much hope for Whatcom County in lowland British Columbia, and that was great in lowland, the lower mainland of British Columbia that way, and it'll backwash around English Bay, and anybody who's on high ground will still have to run, basically, in some areas, So, but that's the consequence of living in beautiful country. The reason mountains are steep is because they're falling down. I knew that when I was young. I understood that. All you have to do is look at Howe Sound. Howe Sound, it's lucky that none of those mountains are prepared to come down the way the barrier is. The barrier will come down into Daisy Lake and down into the Sound. They might not all happen at once, but they might. Hell's Gate Mountain, Mount Breckenridge, all of them might go in a really, really big quake. What could happen around Seattle, God knows, because they're all on all kinds of really complex terrain. There are all kinds of slide material, and they already have a lot of problems with land giving way. So much in the lower mainland we haven't had that problem like they have down there where the land gives way, Anyways, so the augury that I was commenting on was that other wave of if Lulu Island collapses and you have that kind of disaster, or something falls into Georgia Strait, maybe the part of one of the Gulf Islands or one of the San Juans, maybe there's just a landslide, we don't know what's happening there, but it'll have a second wave, not just the first wave, the backwash up the Fraser. And at first, that slip out the island will immediately drain the Fraser up to as far as it drains out from, probably beyond. All of a sudden the water will suck down out of the river. And just like a regular tsunami, folks, when you see that happen and the Fraser suddenly lower, start running like hell, alright? Get in your car. If the earth starts to shake, get out of your car and run. And run and run. And that's the whole thing about the lower mainland of Whatcom County. A lot of Skagit County. Beautiful country. Saanich Peninsula. All depends on where the coastal quake hits, whether it hit in Chosen, Colwood, all the western communities of the island. It's all depends on where the quake hits, what one does. There's any number of like 10 faults I can think of, or things to do with volcanoes in the immediate region of Vancouver and Bellingham and Seattle. That it's not funny. It really isn't. People are blind to it, which is probably a good thing. It keeps them happy for Christmas. But yeah, I needed to add that addenda because I hadn't had it on the other video, so I wanted to comment on that. That in the event of a temblor that shook Lulu Island's colloidal silt, which is 2.5 to 3 miles deep, very fine sand floating in the ancient waters of the Fraser, right? It built up over the millennia since the end of the Ice Age and beyond, probably, because it was there during the Ice Age too, underneath. Accumulating and also coming out other places, like the landscape has changed since the Ice Age. Accumulating, so it shakes at just the right frequency. And the estimate my friend gave me was everything, not all the island, he said, but my own innate sense says it's conceivably everything up to Queensborough and even into the Queen's Reach, which is the bend around past Sapern towards Fraser Mills, with Port Mann on the right. Port Mann's another lowland area, and all of Port Coquitlam, right, So people, when you live near the sea, it has its consequences. But there's bigger things in the sea yet. If the West Antarctic ice sheet collapses, or if Greenland collapses, the pulse will take a while. It won't come around here, but there's a chance that Greenland might just shatter and let go. They don't know this yet. They're just studying it. But it's melting from underneath, and who knows if it gets a crack or something happens. Well, the West Antarctic ice sheet is in risk of having things happen that cause it to collapse, and then there'll be this huge inrush of water, much bigger than the mouth of the Fraser. You know what I'm saying? So the size of that backwash will roll all the way to the Arctic Ocean. It'll be like somebody took a cloth and wiped away the shorelines. Maybe that's the planetary mechanism, but it's too late. We've started warming the planet, and the mutation towards a methane-heated planet is now underway. So unless we find a way off for all of us, some of us are trying to get off, no doubt, but at what expense to everybody else? I don't like it when you ask that question. What is the expense of the resources needed in terms of human lives, metals, energy, all that stuff, to get to another planet for a certain select group of people to move there forever? To do what, though? To ruin another planet, you see? The whole motive for space travel is kind of despicable, you know. I admire the Star Trek notion, you know, that we can find a better way, but we need to really find it really fast then. You know, it's way too late for saying, well, we're good and done in 2 centuries. No, we don't have 2 centuries, okay? We got to get off the planet within 100. And if we don't, that's fine. That's the way it was meant to be. I'm fine with it. Humanity had an interesting run, and I hope the octopus or the jellyfish that's gotten intelligent in deciphering this millennia from now after finding it somewhere, I hope they find this really interesting about what happened, right? We were simians, primates, who learned insect behavior, I guess, by watching them. As probably monkeys and chimps, and certainly chimps and gorillas do. Gorillas look at insects all the time because, well, they're eating them, right? And we did too, and people in Thailand and Isan, they still eat a lot of insects, and they're quite edible. It's great protein. It's a cultural barrier, but, you know, it's sustenance, you know, and that might be all that we have in coming times. Now, what's feeding the insects is the other question. I don't want to get into it, because when you're an oracle, you see things you don't want to see, and it's better for people to not hear. But think about that. Because when it gets too hot to live, when the air gets too choked for it to stand, the methane comes up. There are rapid warming and a rapid toxification of the atmosphere. You know, who's going to eat us? Not that they're going to get our intelligence or anything, you know. But it's like the planet's been terraformed. But I believe that there's a lot of good individuals on the planet. I believe that there are many of us that are awake and aware, and that we're all alive with this same knowledge and trying to communicate it all at once. I've noticed it on some of the other vlogs I've seen, although perhaps they're less aware of the grander history than I am. Of where we are, what we are, and why we are. So it's hard being a rogue philosopher. How did I put it on my Twitter page? A wandering mage. It's very true, though, you know. A mage with no powers is still a mage. How you see the world, you know, how you understand it out of time, how irrelevant the calendar is and the days of the week, other than his salutations to the gods. You know, on this day for him, on this day for her, you know. And today is Fraser-Georgia, the day of Freyr, god of the mysteries in the north, something like Dionysos, and the fertility god. And you'd slaughter a pork, only men in the room, slaughter a pig, splatter all the men with the blood, and then you'd drink and tell stories and rhymes and poems and party it up for the rest of the evening, you know. And it was a sacred rite. This was the ancient North. The North wasn't all about Thor. It was also about Freyr and Tyr and Odin. And, you know, there were Heimdall. Heimdall was an honored character. You know, there's more to the North than Thor, Loki, and Odin, you know, like you get in the comic book and in the movies. But anyways, I'm glad to Jordan Crawford for the information and the knowledge he's sharing online. I'm trying to do the same, as well as, you know, Ryan Hadfield. There's Chris Hadfield, the astronaut's son. They have a great channel, him and his dad. Rare Earth. I don't know where the pneumatic professor's from. He's an American that wanders around and doesn't teach in the classroom. He decided to teach online, as Dr. Crawford does. And the history professor is a nice guy with a bow tie and glasses. But he's very, very wise and has all kinds of interesting things about little bits of history you'd never heard about before.